I was already tired, swollen, and my feet were aching, but completely happy. It was my first daughter's baby shower, a moment I dreamed of since I was a little girl. Friends, family, a pink cake, balloons, everything prepared with love. I wanted to keep that day in my heart forever. I just didn't know it would be marked by something else: emotional betrayal. When my husband took the microphone to thank everyone for coming, I felt tears well up in my eyes. Everything was perfect. But then my brother, yes, my very own brother, excused himself and took the makeshift stage. Before anyone could understand, he snatched the microphone from my husband. He smiled, looked at his girlfriend, and said, "While everyone's here, I have an announcement. Share this story to reach further. Subscribe to the channel, share this video on WhatsApp, and leave a comment telling me where you're listening from. I'll be very happy to read each comment." Total silence. Some people smiled, thinking he was joking. I, 8 months pregnant, with a huge belly, could only whisper, "No," but he continued. "She said yes. We're engaged." Applause, screams, flashes. Me? I simply disappeared in that moment. At my own party, I was swallowed up by the scene he created. People started flocking to them. Kisses, hugs, congratulations. My daughter's cake became the backdrop for the surprise engagement. I felt like an extra at my own event. My mother cried with emotion, not for me, but for him. My father filmed everything, and no one seemed to notice that I was standing there, forgotten, humiliated, erased. I walked away from the main table and sat in a chair in the corner. My husband came over to me, furious but trying to calm me down. "Do you want us to leave?" And in that instant, something inside me flipped. No, I wasn't leaving. I wasn't going to let them turn the most important day of my pregnancy into a stage for someone else. If they wanted a show, then they were going to have one. I stood up slowly. The room was filled with voices and music, but it all felt distant. Every step I took toward the microphone was propelled by pain mixed with courage. When I picked it back up, everyone was still smiling about the engagement. I took a deep breath. I looked at my belly, and I said, "Since we're taking advantage of other people's events to promote ourselves, let me remember whose moment this was." The room fell silent. I felt all eyes on me. My brother laughed uncomfortably. "Oh, it was just a joke, relax." But I wasn't going to relax. It wasn't a joke, it was ego. And the worst kind of ego is the one that dresses up as someone else's joy, because it's disguised. It's smiling. It's the kind that smiles at your party while it's knocking you out. Someone coughed in the back. Someone dropped their glass, but no one said anything. My mother stood up, nervous. "Daughter, this isn't the time for this." I glared. "This isn't the time for what, Mom? To assert myself? To remind me that this party is about my daughter's arrival, not your son finally doing the bare minimum?" My tone was calm, but inside, I was exploding, because this wasn't just about the microphone. This was about years of invisibility. My brother stood still. The bride, embarrassed, lowered her eyes. "You always make a scene," he whispered. That was the trigger. It's not drama when you erase someone. It's not drama when you steal the spotlight from a moment that doesn't belong to you. And you know why that hurt so much? Because it didn't surprise me. Coming from you, I expected it. People were looking at me differently now. Some in shock, others in empathy. My husband held my hand. He didn't say anything, but his gesture gave me strength. I spent days planning this moment, between fatigue, nausea, and back pain, because I wanted to celebrate the life that's coming. And you turned it all into a performance for easy applause. I took a deep breath, but now at least, everyone knows who shines, and who only shines when the light isn't theirs. Timid applause began. People who had remained silent began nodding in agreement. And there, with a firm voice and my heart pounding in my throat, I understood. My daughter deserved a mother who spoke out, who took a stand, who wouldn't accept being the backdrop to her own life. And if that microphone was the symbol of protagonism, it was finally in the right hands. After I finished speaking, the room was divided. Half seemed to understand what was happening. The other half squirmed with discomfort. My brother tried to laugh. "She's sensitive. Pregnancy, right?" Some people laughed with him. Others didn't. I stared at him again. A pregnant woman's sensitivity doesn't justify a brother's insensitivity, and that, you should know. It was as if, in that moment, all the old situations were crashing down on me. The parties where he was the center of attention, the conversations where I was interrupted, the moments in my life that were overshadowed by some new thing of his. I always accepted, always gave in, always the good sister who understood. But the truth, it was never kindness. It was fear of confrontation. My mom tried to grab the microphone from me. I backed away. No, now it's my turn. And I continued. You know what hurt the most? It wasn't him making the announcement. It was seeing you all celebrating as I disappeared. No one thought that this might hurt me, because no one ever does. And I'm tired of expecting consideration from people who only see me when they need an audience. My voice no longer trembled. It came out clear, firm. The words that had been trapped for years were free, and no matter how uncomfortable they caused, they were truths that needed to be spoken, not just for me, but for all the women who have been treated as a backdrop in their own story. Not today. Today, my daughter deserves for this day to remain hers. My mother-in-law came over and hugged me. Quietly, she said, "You were brave." She was the first person at the party to look at me with respect, not judgment. That gave me strength, because I knew that, from then on, some relationships would change, and that the price of my voice would be losing the place they gave me, but never the one I deserved to occupy. I returned to my seat. The microphone rested on the table, like a warning. This story would no longer be told by others. My brother's fiancée didn't know where to hide her face, and he finally fell silent. The kind of silence that comes when the truth is louder than any joke. And there, without fanfare, began the change I should have made years ago. After my speech, the party was never the same. The music continued playing, but no one was dancing. Conversations became whispers. People looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and respect. It was as if everyone was reevaluating their own memories, as if they had awakened from an automatic programming where everything was normal. My brother walked away, visibly irritated. I saw him gesturing to my mother in the corner of the room. She glared at me, but didn't come closer. My father pretended it wasn't him, focused on his phone as always. The greatest pain wasn't even being ignored. It was realizing that, for some, being genuine is more offensive than being absent. A childhood friend came up to me and said, "You spoke for so many people here, including me." That moved me, because I knew what I had done was more than just a rant. It was a warning, a word of enough, a silent plea for women to stop being silent in the name of harmony. Because forced harmony is imprisonment, and I didn't want to live imprisoned anymore. I smiled again when my daughter kicked inside my belly. It was like a signal, as if she were saying, "Mommy, I saw it, and I wanted her to grow up seeing this." To remember, even if unconsciously, that her mother didn't swallow her pain in silence. That on that day, she was defended, not by shouts but by presence, by voice, by the courage to not bow her head. Some people started leaving. Others approached me to chat, and for the first time, the center of the party was truly my daughter. Not because I asked, but because I occupied it. It was as if, by taking off the perfect party costume, I had revealed what truly mattered there: love, presence, and respect for a new life that was arriving. Before closing, I gave one last short speech. I held the microphone again and said, "Thank you to those who stayed. Thank you to those who understood. And if you thought all this was overkill, perhaps you were never silently erased." I placed the microphone on the stand, patted my belly, and sat down. Because that day, the stage was mine, and my daughter's, and no one else was going to steal that from us. The next day, I woke up with my body aching and my mind racing. I replayed every second of the party, every look, every word. Deep down, I still hoped for a message, an apology, a minimal acknowledgement that what my brother did was selfish. But what arrived was something else. Silence. Cold silence. The silence of someone who believes they're right, just because they're silent. My mom posted a photo of the party with the caption, "Family is everything. Beautiful moments we never forget." The picture was of my brother hugging the bride. No mention of the baby shower. No mention of the unborn granddaughter. That hurt me more than any fight. It was as if she was saying, her pain isn't relevant enough to tell. I spent the day trying not to freak out. I went to the obstetrician. I had tests. I listened to my daughter's heartbeat. That gave me strength. Because there, inside me, was someone who depended on my emotional balance. And I wouldn't, allow the childish attitudes of emotionally neglectful adults to affect the beginning of the motherhood I dreamed of. My husband, always by my side, was blunt. "Honey, cut it out. If it were someone from the outside, you would have blocked it already. Why does your mother still have this space?" His question echoed inside me, and the answer was cruel, because women like me were taught to endure, to keep the family together, even if it meant sacrificing ourselves every day. But not anymore. That night, I wrote a message. Simple, no attacks, just setting boundaries. I said I didn't expect anything anymore, that I wouldn't pretend everything was okay anymore, that my daughter was now my guiding light, and that she would never go through the same pain I had. I sent it, and after taking a deep breath, I blocked contact indefinitely. I cried, but it was a cry of release. Sometimes we need to do this. Close the chapter even without a happy ending, because insisting on ties that only tighten suffocates, and I couldn't live like that anymore. That party wasn't just about a microphone. It was about the bill that always falls on our laps. The bill for keeping everything peaceful while others cause war. And this time, I refused to pay. In the following weeks, my pregnancy progressed more smoothly. The peace that came with the decision was strange, but good. I missed what I'd never truly had, true support from my family. But at the same time, I felt relief at no longer needing to mold myself to please them. Their silence was no longer a punishment. It was proof that I'd finally said what I needed to. A few aunts called, trying to understand both sides. One of them said, "You should have waited another time to express yourself." I took a deep breath. And when would that be? At my birth? At the baptism? When else would they steal my spotlight? She remained speechless. Because the truth is, no one ever cares about a woman's moment, only about other people's convenience. My therapist said something that resonated with me. "You weren't aggressive. You were clear. But as women, we're so trained to please that clarity feels like an attack." I kept that to myself, because that's exactly how I felt. I didn't want conflict. I didn't want the spotlight. I just wanted space, a fair amount of space, a modicum of consideration. But even that bothers those who have never learned to share. Meanwhile, my brother was posting stories with his fiancée. "Thank you for everyone's love for our engagement." It was as if my existence had been edited out of their narrative, and for a while, it gnawed at me. But then I understood. When the truth bothers you, those who live by appearances need to create versions where you don't exist. It's easier than facing your own lack of empathy. I started writing about it. No names, no revenge, just truths. I posted it in a mother's group, and it went viral. Thousands of comments. Women said, "You described my Christmas. You said what I never could. Thank you for giving us a voice." That gave me purpose. I realized I wasn't alone, and that speaking up was more powerful than keeping quiet to maintain a false peace. At that moment, I promised myself two things: that my daughter would never experience the erasure I had, and that if necessary, I would take the microphone as many times as necessary, not for drama, not for competition, but for dignity, for space. Because no woman deserves to be a supporting character on her own stage. Never again. 2 months after the tea party, I received an unexpected notification. It was a message from my mom. "Can we talk?" No context, no mention of what happened. Just an attempt to reconnect as if nothing had been said. I stared at that sentence for minutes. I considered deleting it. I considered ignoring it. But deep down, it still hurt. I responded carefully. If it's to pretend nothing happened, I'd rather not talk. If it's to acknowledge it, we can try. The answer didn't come that day, or the next. Silence. It was as if the pressure for sincerity was too much, as if simply existing as a daughter forced me to accept anything. But I was no longer that woman who bowed her head for affection. My husband hugged me that night and said, "You're right. They only know how to come back when they think you've forgotten." And it's true. People who avoid responsibility get closer, hoping time will erase what they refuse to fix. But time, for those who have been hurt, doesn't cleanse. It reveals. And what remained after tea was crystal clear to me. It was never about love. It was about control. Little by little, other family members began sending messages. "He didn't mean any harm. She just wanted to enjoy the moment. You two were so close." As if that would nullify the disrespect. As if old bonds justified new wounds. But they don't. They can't. Because maintaining relationships that diminish you just to appear cool is a slow way to erase yourself. My daughter was born amidst this silence. A beautiful, natural birth, full of tears and love, only with those who truly mattered. And that's when the difference became even clearer. The peace of expecting nothing from those who weren't there. when I needed them most. For the first time, I felt my life was mine alone, and hers. No judging spectators, no false applause, only real love. On the baby's first month, we had a small celebration, just with close friends. Nothing grand, just sincerity, just presence. And that day, for the first time in a long time, no one tried to steal the spotlight. The focus was on her, as it always should have been. And me, I was at peace, because the absence of someone who doesn't respect will never be a void. It's a relief. Months later, my brother finally showed up. Not in person, of course. He sent a voicemail. I did it without thinking. It was an impulse. And you destroyed our relationship because of a party. His voice was harsh. No blame, no listening, just a veiled attack. As if I'd overreacted. As if it had always been my responsibility to maintain the bond, even if it was crooked. I kept listening to that audio over and over, not because I doubted myself, but because I wanted to understand the depths of his blindness, and it was profound. Because his ego had no problem turning my moment into a showcase, but I had a problem with my reaction. That said a lot. It said everything, and it made me realize that some bridges really do need to collapse, or they become traps. My daughter was already 3 months old when this happened. I watched her sleep on my chest, so small and so secure, and I thought, what am I teaching her with all this? What kind of woman do I want her to become? The answer was simple: a woman who knows her worth, who recognizes manipulation disguised as affection, who doesn't lower her voice for fear of appearing difficult. I replied to my brother with the last message he would hear from me for a long time. You didn't listen to me that day, and now you want me to be silent out of wounded pride. But my daughter was born into a world where her mother chose to no longer be invisible. And in that world, respect comes before bonds, before blood, before any celebration. After that, I blocked him. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with the maturity of someone who knows that love without respect isn't worth the name it carries. Sometimes, cutting is saving, cutting is protecting, cutting is growing. And I grew, in the midst of chaos, in the midst of pregnancy, in the midst of the silence of a family that didn't know when to listen. I grew because I needed to, and now, there was no turning back. And the most beautiful thing? By distancing myself from those who silenced me, I grew closer to those who listened. I received support from people I never imagined, from women who thanked me for doing what they hadn't yet achieved. And I understood that speaking the truth can be isolating for a time, but it attracts those who truly deserve to walk alongside you. After the last message, my life shifted into a new place, lighter, clearer. I focused on what mattered: my daughter, my partner, and the small network of people who were truly there for us. No games, no vanity, no stage. And it was in this true space that I truly began to blossom as a mother, and as a woman too. One night I posted a text about the tea party. I talked about the microphone, the speech, and the silence that followed. I didn't name names, just feelings, and the text exploded. Thousands of shares. Comments from women saying, "It was exactly like that for me." Others told even worse stories. And then I understood. That party wasn't an isolated incident. It was simply a snapshot of an entire culture. A culture that teaches women to smile so as not to appear ungrateful, to accept erasure as maturity, to avoid causing conflict, even when it's the wound that bleeds. But I grew tired, and as I spoke, I realized my story wasn't an exception. It was the rule. And when we discover this, it's impossible to return to silence. The truth, once spoken, cannot be unheard. I was invited to participate in a podcast. I went with my heart racing, but I spoke with the same calm I'd felt the day I took the microphone. It was at a baby shower, but it could have been at a wedding, at a wake, at a family lunch. The problem isn't the timing. The problem is the structure. And when I finished, the host fell silent. He understood. I received messages from the team saying they cried while listening, that they called their mothers, sisters, and daughters after the episode. And that healed me a little, not because I wanted fame, but because somehow, what I experienced was serving to change other stories, maybe even prevent other women from going through what I went through. And that is priceless. Sometimes, a revolution begins with a simple gesture, something firmly unspoken, and enough no one expected to hear. And that day, when I grabbed the microphone, I didn't know I was starting a revolution. I only knew I was tired. But today I know. There, amid balloons and cake, My voice was born again, and with it, my freedom was born. 6 months after my daughter was born, I received a letter, handwritten. It was from my mother. She said she was thinking a lot about everything, that she felt sad, but didn't know where to start again. It was the first time she didn't demand anything from me. She just talked. For the first time, she seemed to listen instead of justifying. But even so, something inside me was still on alert. I read the letter more than 10 times. There was no apology, but it had a different tone. It wasn't defensive. It was doubt, like someone who knows they've made a mistake, but still doesn't know how to reconnect. And maybe that was the most she could give at that moment. I knew the reunion wouldn't come with tearful hugs. It would come in small steps, or it wouldn't come at all. I talked to my therapist. She said, "You don't have to rush to fix it. Just listen and see how you feel." So I did. I wrote a response. I told her I was open to talking, as long as it was honest, that I couldn't pretend, smile, or erase what hurt anymore, and that if she really wanted to get closer, she would have to accept who I'd become. She didn't respond, but she sent flowers for my daughter's first birthday, with a note. "I know I made a mistake. I'm still learning." I didn't cry. I didn't smile. But I held on. Because sometimes, the beginning of change doesn't come with an apology. It comes with a different kind of silence. It comes with small cracks in the armor. It comes with the acknowledgement, however timid, that something needs to change. I showed the note to my husband. He said, "You did what no one else dared. Maybe now she's trying to do it too." And for a moment, I felt peace. Not for her, but for myself. Knowing that, regardless of what she does, I did what I had to do. I chose my daughter, and I chose myself, and that, no one can take away from me. Will there be reconciliation? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But for the first time, this doubt doesn't distress me, because now, my focus is different. It's raising my daughter with truth, with presence, with respect. Things I didn't always receive, but that I chose to give. And that, for me, is what transforms pain into a legacy of love. Today, my daughter is just over a year old. She walks around the house with unsteady steps, knocking everything over and laughing as if the world were made only of affection. And in every smile of hers, I see a version of myself that never existed. A light, safe, respected childhood. Something I had to learn to build, the hard way. But now it's real. Real for her. One day while we were playing, she offered me a toy and said, "Here, Mommy," with a drooling smile. I took it, held it tightly, and thought, this is how it starts. With simple gestures, with a listening space, with validation, with the certainty that she will never have to scream to be heard, like I screamed while holding that microphone months ago. I imagine the day she asks about her family, about her grandmother, about her uncle. I know that day will come, and I don't intend to lie. Just tell the truth, without burden, without hate. Just show what happened, and more importantly, what I chose to do with it. Because more than protecting from the world, I want to teach that it is possible to survive it without losing yourself. Today, I don't have all the answers. There are still days when it hurts. Days when I find myself asking, did I overreact? Should I have let it go? But then, I remember her sleeping face, her peace, the sparkle in her eyes. And I know, I did the right thing. Maybe not the easiest thing. Maybe not the most accepted thing, but the most true to myself. And that's enough. I learned that motherhood isn't a sacrifice for acceptance. It's a sacrifice for protection, for construction. And that sometimes, what we do for our daughters isn't just about giving affection. It's about showing that those who try to erase women won't erase another generation. And that the microphone I picked up, perhaps one day she'll pick up too, but with pride, with conviction, not with pain. And if one day she asks me, "Were you angry with Grandma?" I'll take a deep breath and say, "I was. But beyond the anger, I chose to do things differently. And that was my gift to you. Because the greatest legacy I can leave isn't in an object. It's in a gesture, in a stance, in a choice. And I chose. My daughter will never be silenced like I was. There comes a time when the dust settles. The memory is still there, but the pain no longer screams. It whispers. And that whisper asks you, what will you do with what you've experienced? Will you harden yourself, or will you expand? And I chose to expand. Because I don't want to be a bitter woman. I want to be a conscious woman. Strong. Whole. I've started writing regularly again. I talk about real motherhood. About emotional boundaries. about voices that are reborn after silence, and the response has been beautiful. People from all over the world send me messages. They say, "You woke me up. You encouraged me. You saved me." And every time I read this, I remember the girl I was, and I smile, because maybe she's being healed now, finally. My husband says I've been a different person since that party, and I think he's right. Something was born in me along with our daughter, something unnameable, but it changes everything. A woman who knows her worth, who doesn't bend to keep up appearances, who speaks up, who faces up, who protects what she loves, even when she's judged for it. Today my home is simple, but full of truth. The photos I take aren't for display, they're for keeping. Every laugh my daughter makes, every tight hug, every small achievement. And sometimes when I see her sleeping, I think, she'll never have to get up from a party table to remember who she is, because I've already done that for her, and I'll keep doing it. And the most beautiful thing is that now, when I look in the mirror, I see more than a mother. I see a woman who broke a chain, who interrupted a pattern, who spoke out, even when afraid, who wasn't perfect, but she was whole. And this wholeness, in the end, is the greatest legacy, because from it comes everything that truly matters: love that doesn't hurt, and respect that doesn't need to be begged for. If my mother ever understands all this, she'll be welcome. But if she doesn't, that's okay too, because I no longer live trying to be accepted. I live trying to be true. And on this path, only those who understand that love isn't about silence, it's about choice will walk with me. And I chose. I chose my daughter. I chose myself. I chose to live with dignity. I never wanted to outshine anyone else. I just wanted my space, my moment, my voice. The day I took the microphone, I didn't want to cause trouble. I simply couldn't accept being erased anymore, especially on the day I was celebrating the arrival of my daughter. And in that moment, between fear and courage, I chose to stand up. It was there that my story changed, and perhaps hers too. Because a mother who speaks teaches her daughter not to accept silence as fate. What began as a rant became strength, became a path, became an example. Not perfect, but real. And today I know that even with all the pain, I did what I needed to do, and I would do it again. If this story touched you, share this video with someone who needs to remember their worth. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and don't miss the next videos that can change your day. Comment below where you are listening from. I read them all with affection. And never forget, your voice has power, even when they try to silence you. See you in the next video.